Good afternoon. Now is presenting MECO, Mechatronic Ecological Machine. This team is integrated by Juan Alberto García Toledo,
Jaydy Jazmín Meraz Montelongo,
Emanuel Alvarez Huerta,
and Mariangel Ramírez.
The team from the Group B decided to apply all the knowledge has taken in this year in order to create an ecological vending machine called MECO. A vending machine is considered, as its name says, vending, giving the advantage to use for many products. For example, at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in London, were used to sell postal cards, or for example, in the United States, were used to sell gum 8 years later. Over the times, these machines have been changing in order to be more shielding for the customers and for the people, reaching the time of the automatization. For this third quarter, or for this integrated project, we based this idea the facilities to get your own electronic materials in the same place that your practice is. Then we actually know that sometimes there are materials that are expensive or classmates that have economical limits. That's why the decision to add 100% of discount was taken. In order to achieve all the competences and the respect for the university, the ecological part of the project consists in to pick a certain quantity of trash. That's the way to you to get your discount. From the design to the delivery. In the first and the second image, you can see the design from the last and the first prototype. In the first image, you can see the differences between the second one. Firstly, the mechanical buttons, you can see in the second one that we have been changing for a touch wheel. And the little box, it's the way that the trash is measured. In the second one, you can see the whole of change as much as possible in the down part of the prototype, and in the first one you can see a little bit in the middle the supports on the floor, but in the second one we add a metal part to support these two boxes. Both of these designs were made in Vision 360, and then in the last photo you can see a perspective image from the reality prototype.
Now it's time to talk about the mechanisms that we use for this vending machine. First, we have the gear motors. Those with gear motors with a spiral are going to help the product fall down for the consumer. In here we have the data of the spiral. The total large is 30 centimeters. The diameter is 9.5 centimeters and the space between each spiral is 5 centimeters. Our gear motors give us 140 revolutions per minute. This is equal to 2.3 revolutions per second. As we need to move 5 centimeters in 1 second, we need to multiply 5 per 2.3, and that's equal to 11.5. And then with a simple rule of 3, we can find the value of our delay. In this case, is 400 milliseconds. Now it's time to talk about the waste machine. At the beginning, we had the idea to use a load set, but we had a lot of complication using it and also programming it. So we opted to use 2 boxes, one is inside another one, and in the bottom we have a sensor that is going to send the signal of a discount with a minimum of 130 grams of waste. We already take into account the 52 grams that the base waste itself.
Okay, now in the electronical part, I'll show you the sensors that we use to perform each of the tasks in our mechanisms. So you can see that we have the magnetic sensor or limit switch, and in this case it is not a sensor, but we have our servo motors. Why scale? Nowadays we have seen that the problems of global warming have been growing exponentially, so for that reason we have decided to create an ecological system. In the case of our magnetic drive scale, as you can see in the image, the sensor works by detecting a magnetic field. So in this small improved system, we made the use of a magnet to be able to produce such an effect in the process. So that means that at the moment the magnet goes down and is detected by the sensor, that means that the user has deposited at least 130 grams of garbage. And that, as my partner Mariangel said, when it detects the minimum amount of weight, immediately sends a signal to the Arduino to apply a specific discount. That in this case is the half of the total price of each one of our products. This discount will be reflected when the user deposits the required amount of each one of our products in our vending machine. So in this case you can see our coin slot and the design that we made. However, the reading of each coin inserted depends on mechanical actuators that, as you can see in the first slide, I have the limit switch, that it sends a signal each time that it detects the weight of different types of coins, because we are accepting 4 types of coins, 1, 2, 5 and 10 pesos. And then it converts the signal into quantities. And now you may wonder what happens if the user deposits a larger amount than they needed. So for that reason, we have in the prototype an exchange system. So that detects the difference in quantities between the total price of the product and what did you deposit in the machine. So a set of servo motors in this charge of pushing the necessary change, so that by means of a ramp it redirects 2 coins to the exit and you can take your change.
Talking a bit about the human-machine interface, we decided to use a touchscreen, making the direction more comfortable to the user, including images to the product to be selected. Being faster in selection, a striking design was created to have a better impression for the public. Besides, the low lighting will not be a problem to work with it. Well, about the programming, as we use 2 Arduinos, we need to make one for each. In this one, we can see the touchscreen. To begin with, we include the necessary libraries. All of them are specific in the datasheet, since they are usually different. The most important here is Adafruit, because we need this library to use the different libraries. In this part, we also declare code or pins to help us to remember or make it easier to use. Later, in body setup is the baud code, which will start the Arduino and connect the touchscreen, and the pins that will be used to send signals. We decide to use void loop because they will be repetitive actions without any change. At the beginning of this part, we define the different areas of the touch, which will be our buttons. Then we check if any button is pressed to send the signal to the next Arduino. And in the end of this code, we have the logic. This logic is responsible to displaying the image in the screen. Now, this programming is for the second Arduino or logical Arduino. At the beginning, when using servo motors, we include their library to make the correct use of them, and we declare our variables. As in the previous one, in the body setup, we start the Arduino and the connection to the components. here we have input and output signals. We continue with the void loop because, like the previous one, everything will be cyclic. We start with the counter that if you have a signal from the currency will be added, in this case, a coin. Then if you have money, you can enter the next step, where if you have the right money and send the signal from the touchscreen, the Arduino sends the signals to the motor and give you the product. Next, we can see if the scale sends a signal to Meraz count, where later began to do mathematical calculation to verify the money that will be have to return, if necessary. By means of the cycles, the servo motors will be used to return the money. The last option generates the most efficient arrangement to the coins to give the money back.
Well, now we're going to show how the vending machine works. Firstly, we spend 10 pesos, and now when you put whatever these 4 buttons, for example capacitors, you get your change. Now you have your product.